Greetings, people. This is Nel.
Promise.
And welcome to another episode of Anything
and everything in between.
In between. This should be the last episode for this season. Season 1.
Season 1.
Episode 8.
Yeah.
So if you've been following through with all the past recordings of this podcast, thank you. Don't forget to share with us in the comment section, anything that you are thinking about because of the discussions that we're having. And let's get into it. Maybe before we get into it, some shout outs once again. If you haven't given Benjamin your money for Anton Graphics, this is your kind reminder that he does good work.
Yeah.
And you can give him some money to do for your good work as well. He does the graphics here. He's done most of the graphics for the stuff we do with the collective UG. So if you like what you see, the visuals that come along with this podcast and a lot of all the other stuff you'll see here, Benji, Anton Creatives is behind it. So giving you money. Another big shout out to Naj, who made the beat.
Yeah.
Let's go. Promise.
Yes.
What's on your mind today?
Today we're talking about leadership.
Okay.
Yes. And I'd love to, the first question is, have you ever been a leader? Like, what was your first...
Seriously?
Okay, no. Okay. No, let me state it well. Like, when were you first a leader? Like, when were you first given a leadership position?
When was I first
like
given
a class monitor? Yeah.
Okay. So, yes, I think my first leadership position would have been a class captain in my S1.
Yeah.
And I hated it. It sucked. Because, the job of a class monitor is to write names of people who are talking.
Noise.
Exactly. So, basically, you're the guy who everyone doesn't like because you're the one who's always snitching, reporting people. I hated it. I hated it so much.
Yeah.
At first, I remember being excited because no one in my class wanted to be a class monitor.
Yeah.
And someone suggested my name. And the egomaniac in my young heart was like, this is cool. I guess I could be a class monitor.
Yeah.
There's some prestige that comes with that, right?
Yeah.
So I thought it would be a prestigious position, but turns out, nah. Then, still within that time frame, there was a visiting preacher that came to our school.
Yeah.
His name was Peter. And this was in Kaboja SSS, not the fancy one. This one had 3 S's. Back in 99. So, yeah. Anyway, so this guy was a visiting preacher. He came to Sunday service. And I was serving on the team. I remember participating on the team. The guys who do the readings. Yeah. And so, somewhere during the service, I think maybe during the intercession part of the service, he comes up to me and he says, I need to talk to you after the service. So there's a bit of excitement. Hey, I need to just go and see what you have to say. So I got to him, waiting for some really interesting spiritual jazz.
Yeah.
And then he says, God has called you to lead. I was like, no, chick. I already hate being a class monitor.
Yeah.
What's the point? And I never really thought much about it since then.
Yeah.
But I think after that, I did the best I could to avoid any kind of leadership positions. So S2, the same guys wanted to make me a class monitor again. I refused. It's like, I'm not doing that again. I refused. No one wanted it.
Yeah.
Then I changed schools and just stayed low on the radar.
Yeah.
Just never have a position. I still wanted to be like popular and stuff, but I look for those things in other things, just not something called leadership.
Yeah.
So I look for those things in dancing. We used to dance a lot. When I changed schools, I was just my vibe. Dance, do entertainment, but don't be a class monitor.
Or a prefect.
Wow. Or a prefect. Although I did become a prefect eventually.
Oh, in which class?
S5.
Which post?
So I went to another school, S5, Green Hill Academy.
Yeah.
And when I went to Green Hill, I had one goal in my mind. I'm going to read and I'm going to get excellent grades. I'm going to prove myself, you know. That was my mentality.
Yeah.
So I was those guys who's up at 3 a.m. to read. And then prep time ends at 10 and I stay there until midnight. I was also doing a really hard combination.
Yeah.
And I felt good about it. It's going to make me look good.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did succeed at first in that goal. I was getting good grades. The dormitory warden liked me because when he came to wake people up, I was already awake and ready to go. You know? So before I knew it, they wanted to make me a house prefect. Now, I don't want to be a prefect.
Yeah.
But the worst kind of prefect is a house prefect.
Because they have a lot of work.
You have a lot of work. You have to organize guys for sports day. You have to organize guys for MDD.
Yeah.
You have to make sure the dorm is clean.
Yeah.
A house prefect is really the slaver of them all. So I refused. Wow. They told me, look, man, you're going to be a prefect. Get with the program. So I got a burst of wisdom. I figured the academics prefect does nothing. Because the library has a librarian.
Yeah.
Every class has a class teacher. So if I convince the teachers who are trying to make me prefect to make me academics prefect, I'll still succeed at doing nothing. Yeah. That was my wisdom. So, and I also knew that they wanted me to be a prefect because of my performance at the time. So that's what I said. They said, you know what, let me do academics prefect. I can do that well. And they said, okay, that's what we'll do. So I became the academics prefect, unopposed. It was smooth sailing. Yeah. Until one day, in the dormitory, some guys had like porn DVDs that they were watching. I was not around when they did that. Then I came back and I found out. I got mad. They were classmates of mine. I got mad. So they'd taken the TV into their room. And I was like, you guys can't do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the TV back down. And you're going to... Yeah, let's just leave it at that. I was also a bit, careful. Because they're my classmates. Yeah. They were like, we're not taking this TV back down. And the more they refused, the more I also was like, I also have to win. Yeah. And so it became a bit of a fight. Then, frustrated, I went back to my room. We had a prefect's room, me, the head prefect, and another prefect. So the head prefect is like, what have they done? He got mad. He went, escalated the situation. Yeah. Before I knew it, the warden was involved. This was like the weekend. Yeah. Before I knew it, on Monday, this guy's room was all being sent out of the dormitory. They were now going to become day scholars. Wow. Included in those people that were removed was my house prefect, the prefect of my house. And so the next week, they were like, okay, we have to... These guys who have been expelled from the dormitory can't continue being prefects because...
Yeah, they have to be replaced.
They have to be replaced. So they were announcing replacements. And guess who they called to be the new house prefect? Me.
It found you. Wow.
I wasn't having it. It wasn't fun.
Wow.
In that year, we didn't win anything. Yeah. Because I was bad at it.
You didn't want to do it.
No, well, I tried, but I was bad at it.
Wow.
Yeah. That's my initiation into leadership positions.
Wow. So, over the years, you're now a leader. Yeah, and I believe you love it and you're doing it well. You're not bad at it. You're good at it. Right? Yeah.
It looks that way.
Yeah, it does.
A, for keeping up the facade. The imposter in me is yet to be discovered.
Well, what is leadership to you? Like,
over time, I have come to learn that leadership is influence. And that's something John C. Maxwell, in all his books. Leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. That if you walk into a room of 20 people and you appoint one person to be the leader. So they have the position. This guy has the position of leader. Maybe let's say a classroom, same as where it started. You're in a classroom, and someone is elected to be the class monitor. So that person has the position. There's always that one guy or girl in the class who, when they say, you know what we should do, everyone rallies behind the idea. Yeah, so you have a class monitor, and then you have the class leader. The class leader is the one who says, you know what we should do, and everyone rallies behind it. Because that's what it is at the end of the day. It's leadership. Leadership is just influence. And while I thought I was staying low-key, I was still doing things that made me influential in different ways. Like we were dancing. We had a dance group back in the day called the Mechanics. It's very good. We'd wear blue overalls. And we'd go on stage and we'd break dance. If you're watching this podcast or hearing it and you know what I'm talking about, how are the 2 children that you have? And how is paying school fees going for you?
Wow.
Because you have to be that old. It was a while ago. In those days, like, it was a thing. In church, we'd dance, we'd wear overalls. And, you know, it started out like just as a small local church idea. It became popular. Before we knew it, we were going to many schools, going to many churches, going to university. I was like in S5, S6. And we'd be going to campus for this thing called prime time to dance. And the campusers were like, man, we love these guys, the Mechanics. And the creative dancers of back in the day, we always were storytellers. So it'd be like, oh, this dance is about, you know, because we had to make sure that dance sounds like ministry. So this dance is about, you know, like how God gave his life for us and he forgave us. So it always put a bit of drama in it, you know. And people would watch this stuff and they would love it and they would want you to come back. And now I'm thinking back at it in those moments, and like, even though you wouldn't have called it like, hey, these guys have a leadership position, but we're influencing people. There was no social media. We're influencing, you know, people would hear about what we've done. They say, hey, come and do it. And just by being able to show up and do something on a platform that influences people, and some people would give their lives to God, that's influence. So in a lot of ways, we were leading, even though I was very sure that we were not. But yeah, leadership is influence. And I think that if you're a Christian, you can't run away from this subject. You must embrace the idea of leadership. You need to learn how to lead yourself. You need to learn how to lead the people in your family. You need to learn how to influence your friends, your neighbors, and just be a great example that people want to follow. That's influence, you know, and that's leadership. You can't escape it. You can't escape it, promise. You're a leader. Whether you want it or not, it is a requirement. It is a responsibility that we all carry. Yeah. So,
minus your time in school, was there a time where you felt like you don't like a good leader? Like, yes, you're already in this position, but it's not working out. Like, are there times like that?
Absolutely. So, I've had those, that's like yesterday. The answer to your question is, have those things happened? Yes. Yesterday. Maybe tomorrow. All the time. Comparison is such a disease, man. And I don't know if it has a simple escape. I mean, in one of the previous episodes, we talked about jealousy and how it is such a thing, and social media makes it so easy to feel jealous. It's so easy to compare yourself with people. You know, I'll be on Instagram and I'll be like, oh, look at that. Mike Todd is doing a great job leading Transformation Church. How old is he? Wait, that guy is younger than me? Wow, Nel, you're not doing well. You know, you gotta step up. So the question of if I feel like I suck at it, that's like it's constant. But simultaneously, while that is the imposter in my brain that speaks to me that way, there is also the voice of God, the Holy Spirit, who speaks differently in his language, through the scriptures. He's like, I'm with you.
Yeah.
And this is how the people I'm asking you to lead will know that I'm with you. When you trust me with your gifts and I put them to work and do this type of thing. He told Moses, I'll be with you. He told Gideon, I'll be with you. He told Jeremiah, I'll be with you. Jesus told all of us, I'll be with you. And I think that is something I'm trying to be mindful of, to remember that I suck, but God doesn't.
Yeah.
And He's with me.
You. Yeah.
And because He's with me, even though I suck, we might get some things done. And those things won't suck.
Yeah.
In 2017, so we started the collective 2015. The idea for it came 2014. Before there was the collective, there was the HOP band, which we started in 2005. And the idea for it came in 2004. So it's been like 20 years of this journey. In 2004, when I first had this dream, I talked to a few people about it. But the person I talked with the most about it, what I told them was, man, you know, the truth is, I don't want to lead. Because I hated being a class monitor. I hated being a prefect. So I just don't want to lead. Yet at the same time, there is this idea that I think God has given me. But I just don't want to lead. You know, a part of me was thinking, if I could convince someone about this idea, and then they lead, and then I play the guitar in their band. Yeah. That would be cool. That was my initial plan. All right. Yeah. Someone else can lead, I'll play the guitar. At that time, before we started that band, at church, you know, the youth band we're playing with, a lot of the guys who were leading moved on to other things. And then there was just me, and the guys on the team were like, hey, you should be our leader now, because no one else is here to lead us. Come and be the music director for our youth band. I said, okay. I did some things well. I did a lot of things poorly. Yeah. Man, I don't know if I have enough time to tell all these stories. But I tell you what, I'll put them in a book, which you can buy. It's coming soon. You'll have to wait for it. But, you know, like I did some things well, I did some things poorly. But when I eventually started the band, you know, leadership is now knocking on the door. And meanwhile, look, there's no training. There is no one who's saying like, hey, this is what leadership is going to look like. I'm just
figuring it out. Yeah.
I'm not asking for help. By the grace of God, help came along the way, but I was just forging. The band we started, you know, we were just 3 guys, and so we'd meet in this room. I'd play the guitar, we'd sing some songs, we'd write some songs. Then people would be like, hey man, I like what you're doing, let me come and join it. We'd meet in my wife's room at the time. She wasn't my wife, she wasn't even my girlfriend, she was a good friend. It's a true story. But we'd meet in her room, and so like her roommates got involved, some classmates of mine got involved, and all these girls. Then some guys would be like, hey man, what's that thing? And there's so many girls there, we want to be part of it. They wanted to come because of how many girls were involved. I said, why not? I will not say names, Reverend Gideon. Reverend. Oh my gosh. Please don't pray bad prayers for me. But the truth is, that's what happened. Anyway, so we have different people joining the group for different reasons. Yeah. But either way, the group became so big. And now you have a group of about 25, 30 people. Meanwhile, there's no WhatsApp, so only God knows how we were successfully coordinating these things back in the day. Man, it was amazing. But again, the consistency is, how do you manage such a big group of people? And then people don't show up consistently, and then they show up, and then are they really interested, or are they just curious? And then like, what is the investment? And then you start to feel all kinds of ways about it. It's just so confusing, mentally exhausting. Leadership, my gosh, along the way, I remember making some choices to manage the group. Some really not so good choices. I think I broke a lot of people's hearts properly. In my mind, I thought I was doing the right thing. I wasn't, to be honest, I wasn't trying to do the right thing by them. I was trying to do the right thing for the music group, And in the process, you had people. So those are some of like the early failures. But then there are those guys who stuck with me, even though I wasn't particularly great at it. And we endured through that growing, progress. We start Collective UG. I'm a much older person than when we started the band, the HOP band, because 10 years older. And you would think that by now you've learned. I've experienced a lot of things, but it didn't take long again for the deficiencies to show up. You're just failing at managing people. And now the difference is, in those days I was trying to do what was right for the band. Like the band was the big idea, right?
Yeah.
When we started the Collective UG, from the beginning it was always about people. And so I always made decisions believing that I was doing it to help people. But on one of the darker days, the report that came back to me was Nel doesn't care about people. And I'd invested so much time, resource, sacrificed so much. Yeah, so, maybe I just shouldn't be doing this. And I resigned, honestly. Wanted to close the whole thing down. But like I said again, the imposter in me says you can't. And the Holy Spirit says, but I'll be with you. And honestly, that's the only reason I stayed in there. It was God reminding me through His Word and through mentors and people that He sent my way that you're not alone. But one thing that I realized is that I've got to learn how to lead for real if I'm going to lead properly. And that was, mentors, they encouraged me and they taught me that. So I put myself in learning spaces. Masterminds. I started reading books. I just started looking for information. What does it mean to lead? What does it look like? And so over time now, I am not where I used to be, not quite where I want to be. But along the way, I fell in love with the idea of leadership because of its ability to help people. And that's what I really want to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I love everything that I'm hearing, but I have a question. So for as a leader, is there a room for dictatorship? Like where you're going to be like, I said this and it is this, or it should always be, let's talk about it. Like let's agree and.
My gosh, use the big word dictatorship. I think wisdom is what you're going to need. I'll read for your scripture. Joshua chapter 1. So Joshua inherits this position of leadership after Moses has died. And God tells him, look, Joshua, my servant Moses has died. Therefore, the time has come for you to lead these people. It's Joshua chapter 1 verse 2. The time has come for you to lead these people. The Israelites across the Jordan River into the land that I've given them. And then he says, I promise you what I promised Moses. Wherever you set foot, you will be on land I have given you. From the Negev wilderness, in the south, the Lebanon mountains, blah, blah, blah. He says so many promises there. Then, verse 6, he starts to say, number 1, you're going to have to be strong and courageous because you are the one who will lead these people. So, that's number 1. If God has called you to lead, which He has called you to lead, I think you have to discover what that calling looks like and where He's calling you to serve that calling. But promise, you are the one that God has called to do the thing He has told you to do. He told Joshua, you're the one who will lead these people to fulfill this promise that I gave about possessing this land. So you're going to have to be strong and courageous because you're the one to lead. In other words, there are going to be moments when you wake up and you say, maybe you picked the wrong guy.
Yeah.
And the thing that's going to help you to overcome that thing is you're going to have to be courageous.
Yeah.
Okay. When the imposter comes, you're going to have to find the courage to say, hey, but I am the one with the responsibility. Let's go. 2, he says, be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the instructions Moses gave you and don't deviate from them.
Yeah.
Turning to the left or the right, then you will be successful in everything you do. There are God instructions and there are people's opinions. To know that, hey, if I'm a leader serving a God purpose, I have to be careful to obey God's instructions. And there'll be times when the people you're leading have alternative opinions about it. And now there your leadership is being tested. Are you going to trust God's instructions, or are you going to serve the people's opinions so that they can love you or like you? You can't do that. So, I mean, sure, you want to call it dictatorship. I want to call it principled. You want to have values that you protect. And because you're the one who is going to lead, you have to be strong and courageous in protecting what's valuable.
Yeah.
You have to be strong and courageous in protecting the principles that God has given you to lead with.
Wow.
Then you will be successful in everything you do.
Yeah.
And now he says, study. Verse 8. So study the book of instructions continuously. Think about it, meditate on it day and night, so you'll be sure to obey everything that is written in it. Only then will you be prosperous and successful in all that you do.
Yeah.
So I think, yes, there are points of contention where maybe a decision is not necessarily built around value or principle, but just around something experiential, emotional. And so there's always room to listen. You've got to get feedback from people. The Bible tells us in Proverbs that in the multitude of counselors there is safety. So you want to have people that you listen to who counsel you, because when you are surrounded by that, there is safety, and you're more likely to be safe. Now, the multitude of counselors should not be confused with the multitude of opinions. Because a multitude of opinions can be confusing.
Yeah.
But a multitude of counselors can be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some people just have opinions to offer, but there's no counsel. So social media is a multitude of opinions. You can't build your ideas on the opinions of the wide field. You've got to have some principles that you stand by. The last thing he said was, be strong and courageous. Verse 9. This is my command. Be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go.
Wow.
Yeah. So, dictatorship, nah, I call it discipline.
Yeah.
But you also have to be aware of the context of your leadership, I guess. Because if you are a government official, for example, there are laws that govern your operation. And so that means that there are decisions which you must make with consultation of the people that are around you. And you can dictate your way through them, in which case that is not just because now you're abusing your position and undermining everyone. Again, that is not a multitude of counselors, you know.
Yeah.
But there's still moments of leadership where you've been given authority, and your principles and values are going to determine the extent to which you can succeed, whether you stand by them or not. You can't follow someone that doesn't have values or principles. Someone who always flows with the wind of every suggestion that comes in is two-faced. You can't trust that person. You don't know what their interests are. You don't know where they're going to take you. You don't know them. They have no identity, you know. But you, when you have principles and you have values, then people know exactly who you are, because they say, look, this Promise won't do this. Promise won't stand for that. Promise believes in this. Promise will defend this. And then if knowing all of that, they choose you to lead, it's because they expect you to uphold those values. You can't start changing them because someone didn't like them. That's not why you were elected.
Yeah.
Come on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, now the last question.
Let's go.
So, like, first of all, I love how you've answered this previous question. I am fully satisfied with the answer.
Fully satisfied. I like that.
What attitude would you want the people you're leading to have? Like, at the end of the day, let me say you've been leading someone and they get to go to a different space. What kind of attitude, mindset would you want them to have?
Well, attitude, mindset. One is I love it when people fear God. I would love people to fall in love with God and to fear Him. Both, I love you and I fear you. But fearing God means that, look, I'm not going to play games when it comes to God's values because He's God. He is God. Jesus said, don't be afraid of someone who will kill you. Be afraid of the one who can kill both you and your soul. That is God. Only God can do that.
Yeah.
That's what makes Him God. That ultimate power. He's the ultimate boss level in anything. So to fear Him, it's more of like reverence, like I revere God. That if God calls me, if God calls you and sends you to something, you're not caught wandering about, but you're like, you're not God. Because you're God and you're the one who has said we go, we're going to go. I'd love for people to be visionary. I think that in our country, you're a young person, grown up in Uganda, it's really hard to be visionary. Because from before you can allow certain thoughts to exist in your mind, there are so many people that are already telling you who you need to be, what you need to do.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, there's just not a lot of room given to us in our upbringing for critical thinking. And so, it's been my observation that we struggle with being visionary. With imagining a better future is what I mean. Because being visionary is seeing a better future and dreaming about it. And hopefully dreaming about it enough to start imagining solutions on how do we get there. It's so hard to lead without having vision, without having that imagination of a better future. Because then, okay, so you have this influence over people, where are you taking them? Well, no, just go and stay right here where we are. There's not much leading going on there. There is maintaining, But to be visionary when you're young, it gives you a lot of opportunity as a person to contribute in any space that you're in. One of the things I like about you is you are a perpetual contributor. Like you walk into a space and you leave a strong impression. Anyone who's been watching this podcast can probably just look at the background, this wall, and like maybe every week there's a new thing and another thing, and that is you just imprinting yourself. And the room feels warmer, but that is you, This podcast itself, I've talked about, hey, man, I would love to do a podcast. And then you come into the picture and you go beyond hearing. You say, oh, I'd love to do a podcast, and you create a schedule, and now here we are. So you have a visionary characteristic and attributes. And I love it when young people do, because the result of that is they contribute in every space they're in. They say, oh, there's an opportunity to contribute here, and they make contributions. And then people rally behind their contributions and say, hey, how can I be part of it? How can I help?
Yeah. And
if someone comes to you, Promise, and says, hey, how can I be part of what you're doing? How can I help? In that moment, you're leading. And that's what it's about. I feel like vision is one of those things, man. When you have it and you run with it, man, you make the world a better place. Wow. And young people, when we do that, the world is better for it. Come on.
Wow, so much wisdom.
Yeah. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel though.
Yeah.
This YouTube stories, Collective UG Stories channel on YouTube. You can find this podcast in other places as well, Spotify and Apple Podcasts and other places like that. If it's not on your favorite podcasting service, there's an RSS feed in the description that you can use to have it wherever you find your podcasts. But let's go. Promise. Thank you for making season 1 happen. If you've been consistent, thank you for making season 1 exist in your ears and your brain. Looking forward to doing more next time. And you could also just tell us what are some of the things you'd like us to talk about. This is anything and everything in between.